Welcome to the Real Life Podcast at Hermitage Hills, where we have real honest conversations with real people about topics relevant for today. At Hermitage Hills, we desire to see people experience life change through Jesus Christ. For more information about our church and how you can be a part of the community here, visit hermitagehills.com/connect.
Well, hello. Welcome back to the Hermitage Hills Real Life Podcast. I'm Julie Salva, and you can see that I'm back in the host seat. I really liked it last time, and you know what? Polly let me do it. So I have a special guest for y'all that I really think you're going to like. This is Lincoln Vallett. Lincoln is a Hermitage Hills kid, born and bred. I just asked him before we started. I was like, Lincoln, how long have you been going to Hermitage Hills? What'd you say?
I think we started coming here when I was in first grade.
And how old are you now?
Now I'm 30.
Okay, so I'm going to math this. So most first graders are like 5 or 6, I guess.
Yeah.
So like 25 years your family's been involved here.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So guys, this is a Hermitage Hills guy. That's kind of exciting. But here's the thing. He's got a great story. So sit back, get yourself a cup of coffee. You're going to love listening to this. If you are a fan of adventure, we are going to go to Knoxville, a huge town known for its adventure, right? Mm-hmm. We're going to travel the world, and we're going to end up in Ethiopia, and it's going to be pretty awesome. So Lincoln, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, well, here we go. So Lincoln, born-ish at Hermitage Hills, been here since first grade. What was Hermitage Hills like for a kid back in the day? I haven't been here that long, so I don't know. What was it like?
Yeah, I mean, I remember enjoying my time in Hermitage Hills as a kid.
Yeah.
Going through the Sunday school program. And I think I started in first grade.
Yeah.
Just, the enjoyment of like getting together with the other kids and learning the Bible, but, you know, making it fun.
Yeah.
Really, I grew up through my early teenage years, coming here, almost every Sunday. So
you came here through your early teenage years, and you grew up in Old Hickory. Okay, where'd you go to high school?
Davidson Academy.
Okay, so what happened in the early teenage years? What happened?
Oh well, early in the preteen days.
Okay,
I remember one time I was in the old sanctuary.
Yeah.
And Polly taught a message on heaven.
Okay.
And I remember being like, oh man, like, that sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds good. I want that.
I think I want that, yeah. And so it was at the end of that service that I gave my life to Christ.
Okay.
So obviously a momentous moment in my life happened here in the church through Polly's message.
Yeah.
And then off and on after that, also going to Davidson Academy, it's a Christian school. So, I was always surrounded by Bible teaching and Christian community. But, after that moment of giving my life to Christ, there was a bit of kind of up and down as far as like pursuing it and not, I was a kid.
Yeah.
And then I think around 15 years old, I kind of lost interest,
right?
I would say.
Yeah.
I remember having this like very conscious change of mindset that, the purpose of life is just to have a good time.
Okay.
Like that was the mentality that I came into. With that, I lost interest in the church.
Right.
And I think my parents weren't ones to force me to come, which looking back, I'm grateful, I think was very wise. So I kind of dropped out of everything and just really started this life of pursuing a good time, whatever, in the high school days, sometimes it was partying, but like a lot of times it was just adventures, just finding, things to do, not necessarily trouble to get into, but, just wherever the good time was, wherever the adventure was, like...
That's where Lincoln was.
I wanted to be there.
And see, this is what I love about your story, Lincoln, because I think for so many people, and again, the podcast is titled Real Life, many church stories are very sanitized. They're very sanitized. I accepted Christ as my Savior, and my life has been great ever since. When Scripture tells us that's not how it works, that we will still have troubles and things like that. You were looking for the good time, though.
Yeah.
You were looking for the fun. And so that fun, I'm guessing, took you to the University of Tennessee.
It did.
It did.
And the testimony, the story gets a whole lot less even sanitized there for sure. But that mentality really continued into college. Like you said, I went to University of Tennessee, Knoxville, big school, came up in this like small high school.
Yes.
So like the freedom of the big and the adventure of the big college. Joined a fraternity.
Yeah.
Was all about that life. After the first year, I lived in the fraternity house.
What fraternity, just out of curiosity?
ATO,
sure.
Alpha Tau Omega.
Yeah. Right.
So when I lived in the frat house, there was 40 of us in one house, no shortage of trouble to get into. Sure. And even I was so about it, most of the people I went into the fraternity with, they were in and out of that house in 1 year.
Right.
After 1 year, they were like, enough. I stayed the next 3 years.
The whole time.
And even in the third year, I became the president of the fraternity. But that life was, again, all about the adventure, the partying, and finding a good, looking for a good time.
Right.
And that was just the life I was submerged in. Probably partying 3 or 4 nights a week. Yeah. Didn't matter if there was an exam the next day or whatever. I wasn't going to miss out.
Right.
So
at any point during that time where you were kind of just looking for adventure, looking for what made you happy, were there ever any little nudges that God was like, I'm still here?
That's an interesting question. One thing, I don't know if it was the Holy Spirit or if it was just habit or what, I could never fall asleep unless I prayed.
Isn't that something?
Couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Even when prayer was so far out of my mind that I'm laying there in bed, like, why can't I go to sleep? I'm like, oh, I didn't pray.
Yeah.
And I would say a quick prayer.
Yeah.
And it was a routine prayer.
Right.
And
but you had to do it.
Yeah. And I think, even it was 5 years that I was really off the path of Jesus.
Yeah.
But there was a grace over my life in that time. A lot of protection. Yeah. Literally, I could name a couple situations where God just literally protected my life, where I was in a state, not a good state, and something happened. It could have been bad, but God saved me. Or even, in the party life, there's some really bad things you can get into.
Right.
And I just never had the desire to get into those things a lot, even when a lot of my friends were.
Yeah.
And I just see that that was God's grace.
Yeah.
God's protection.
Right.
Over my life.
And see, and this is the interesting thing about these real stories is that, we go down these paths that for whatever reason are not the paths that God would have for us. And I think one of the lies that the enemy tells us with that is that, well, now you're too far gone. You're too far gone and you didn't do it right, and God doesn't have a way for you yet. But yet what you're saying in your story and what Scripture tells us too is that he was still there with you. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's shift gears for a little bit. So Lincoln's ready to graduate from University of Tennessee. Yeah. And I'm guessing still looking for adventure.
Yes.
What did you find?
Well, I have to go back just a little bit.
Please, yeah.
I had one friend in college, I was in the fraternity. She was in a sorority. Her name was Lauren Putty. Uh-huh. We met partying.
Yeah.
That was how we became friends, just like almost all of my friends. Well, I was a year older than her, but between her freshman and sophomore year, she went to Ethiopia because her mom had adopted from Ethiopia, had founded an organization called Ordinary Hero there. And Lauren just went out for the summer, just like typical sorority girl when she went. And the experience completely changed her life. Okay. And it was on that trip that she gave her life to Christ. And when she got back to college, she, changed her lifestyle.
Right.
So because she changed her lifestyle, I never saw her anymore because she wasn't out at the parties anymore. And then I think the Kairos moment, the providential moment in my life was one day I was in the library and we just bumped into each other.
Right.
Lauren and I. And, I was just like, Lauren, I haven't seen you around. Like, where have you been? And we were talking, and I said, I saw you went to Africa this summer. How was that? She was telling me about like how amazing it was, and kind of like what an adventure it was.
Yes.
And she said, she just casually dropped, she said, you should come next summer. And I don't know what in my frat boy mind should have had like any interest in a mission trip to Ethiopia.
Right.
But something in my mind just clicked, and I told her, you know what? I think I will.
Yeah.
And I did.
Yeah.
I followed through. That summer, it was very interesting how events unfolded. I ended up almost spending my whole summer in Africa. The first 6 weeks I was in Cape Town, South Africa, on a study abroad trip.
Okay.
It was the pinnacle of my party days.
Yes.
I mean, like literally, it was like a 6-week spring break.
Okay. And was Lauren there as well?
No. This was
after that.
different. But
yeah.
I had a plan at the end of that trip. I was going to go straight from South Africa. When everyone else was going back to the U.S., I was going to go straight from South Africa to Ethiopia to join this mission team.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting with a friend at the bar, one of my last nights on the trip, and I looked at her and I said, I know exactly what's about to happen.
Yeah.
Like talking about going to Ethiopia, I know exactly what's about to happen.
Right.
And I don't want anything.
What was it? What did you think?
I knew somehow. I knew that God was like about to
rock your world,
get a hold of me,
Oh.
And I was like, man, I don't want anything to do with that. You know what I mean? I love my life.
Yeah.
I love this lifestyle. Like I don't want that. And sure enough, that was the case. And we got to Ethiopia, and I'm on this mission trip. I'm out there for a whole month. And, we're serving and in the community and doing different things, interacting with kids, going to orphanages. I mean, all sorts of different things. And it was just like God was speaking to me the whole time, like showing me his hand in everything we were doing. And I remember I had a few just very kind of definitive thoughts on that trip. And one of them was just kind of like this moment, just like, whoa, like God is real.
Yeah.
And like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
And so those experiences kept going, and then one day it all kind of came to a head where I won't tell the full story. The short story was, let me tell
it
a little bit. Yeah,
tell it.
We had this day of ministry, and a lot of great things were happening that day. I remember we were in the woods on this mountain, like trying to find this waterfall, and we came across a group of kids, and somebody shared the gospel with them, and a couple of them were like, I want to get baptized. Yeah. And they baptized them right there. And someone on the team, an American, also said, I want that too. Got baptized. And when all this was happening, there was just this like unrest building up in me the whole day. All these great things like that just kept happening. But every time it was just more and more burden on me. And people are looking
that's a weird feeling, though, if you think about it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because, all these good things are happening. It should be yes, it's a great day.
And now I see clearly, it was spiritual warfare. That day, and people are asking, like, what's wrong with you today? I'm like, nothing. Like, I'm fine. Like, and then we got back to the guest house. I went straight up to my room, and I laid down to take a nap. Yeah. And, I really just laid down to think, like, what is going on? Right. And I fell asleep. But have you ever had a nap where, like, it's just like you blink and you're awake? You don't like feel like you fell asleep. You just blink and suddenly, it was one of those kind of naps. I just blinked and I was awake. And when I woke up, I felt so light, like the opposite of what I had been feeling before. And I literally just like sat up in the bed and I just prayed like, God, like, what was that? And I remember like something in me just questioned, well, what did you pray for yesterday? That question just came to my mind.
Yeah.
It's like, what did you pray for yesterday? And I remember the day before, Lauren had taught me, we were just talking, and she had taught me this prayer, like, break my heart for what breaks yours.
Yes.
And I remember, when I remembered that I had prayed that, the most clearly I've ever heard God's voice in my whole life. It was almost audible. It wasn't audible, but it was audible. Like, I can't explain it. But, you know, I heard God say, what breaks my heart is you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, Lincoln, this is, oh, wow.
And I just remember just having this moment and just like, you know, just sitting there thinking, and it wasn't this like other grand moment.
Right.
I just said, you know what? Jesus, like, no, I want to follow you, you know?
Yeah.
It was just kind of like, it wasn't like this big, I mean, obviously hearing God's voice like that wasn't a big moment, but the moment of just deciding was just kind of like, you know what? Yeah. I want to be serious about this. Like, I don't want to have a faith that's cultural. No, I want to follow
you,
Jesus. So, and so that was kind of the decision moment. And then I came back to the U.S. had several difficult decisions to make. That was really putting my choice into practice.
Right.
But then the worst or the most difficult part about it all was I was still living in the fraternity house. I still had to go back, finish my last year of college.
Yes.
I'm still living in the fraternity house. I'm still the head of the place.
Yes.
I'm still the lead. I'm like halfway through my term of being president of the fraternity.
Right.
And so that year, especially that first semester when I was still, that was the most difficult year of my life. Because, you know, in one hand, it's like, okay, if you're trying to live a new lifestyle, it's better just to get out of that environment, right? But it's like, I can't just bail.
You were the president.
I'm the leader of the place. You know what I mean? Like, what kind of message would that be?
Right.
And so, man, I worked my way through that year. Honestly speaking, it was not pretty.
Yeah.
There was many times that I stumbled and fell flat on my face.
Yeah.
In that way during that year, but
God was still there to pick you up.
Yeah. And so, yeah.
You know, I love that story. There's so many aspects of that story that I love. And then I think people who are listening to this can get hope from, first of all, that you can run from God, but God doesn't run from you. You know? Yeah. God was I don't even know how to put into words the fact that God made it very clear what was getting ready to happen for you in your spirit. And the fact that you knew you didn't want anything to do with it. You know, spiritual warfare is a real thing, you know? It's a real thing. And yet, how does that make you feel to know that God fought for you like that?
Oh, I mean, obviously, you know, you
but
feel loved.
You're worth
exactly,
it.
You know?
You're worth it.
And like you mentioned, I learned the lesson, both in that and through the next year as I struggled, like, you know, sometimes when we screw up, sometimes when we're kind of on the downhill in our walk, like, you know, we think we've walked so far away from God, and you know we're facing away, and we think that, you know, when we turn, we have to walk all the way back.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
But when we're, you know, so far away, when we turn around, we see
God running.
He's been behind us, just right behind us, you know.
The whole time.
And
you know, what's interesting is that in the Eastern culture, you know, as Westerners, we look at the Bible. What does the Bible teach us about us? In the Eastern culture, it's more, what does the Bible teach us about God? And when you look at that, and you look at that story of the prodigal son, the name that an Eastern culture would give that story is the story, I learned this from a class I took, the running father.
Ah, interesting.
Which totally,
I never heard that,
totally changes the perspective of it, you know? And I love that, because if somebody here is listening and they're like, that's me, I'm the one that's so far away. It's like you said, you don't have to run back. Just turn around. Just turn around. He's there. And so, I mean, thank you for sharing that with us, because that is such a powerful, powerful illustration of the love that God had, not just for you, but for all of us, you know? definitely. So let's move forward now. Okay. You are at UT, you've made it through that last final year and the difficulties that were encountered there as, I'm going to say, kind of a new believer, you know?
Yes.
I mean, kind of trying to live a new lifestyle, and you've graduated, right? Almost.
A little bit before that.
Okay, come on, bring us back.
In my second, the big question, I'm a senior.
Right. What's next?
What's next? And I was learning business. I was planning on I was planning on going out, getting a job, like going into the business world. Like that was kind of like the standard plan. I knew I wanted to be involved in missions. Yeah. Somehow, like God made that. That was one of the things, actually, I didn't mention in that story in Ethiopia. Was part of it was God showing me the purpose He had for me. Like I very quickly saw there. I enjoyed the cross-cultural element. I loved the work. I quickly found a passion for working with kids, which is what we were doing like the whole time. And so part of that whole God drawing me was like showing me the purpose that He had, what He designed me for. But still, I just thought like, okay, missions, like whatever, short-term
Every summer I'll do a mission trip.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And so towards the end of the second semester, how did it start? Somehow my mind went back to someone had told me about the World Race, this program called the World Race. It's a mission trip that you go to 11 countries in 11 months. Okay. So literally it's usually in like 3 or 4 regions. So you literally just like travel the world, changing countries every month, serving in whatever context that, the ministry you're partnered with wants you to. And I remember someone showed me that like a long time before, and I just looked at it and was like, oh yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like that was like the only thing that I thought, that's crazy. Right. But I never like thought about it for myself. And somehow that thought came back into my mind, and I was like, no, like no way. Like
you keep saying a lot of somehow this thing happened. I think looking back, we're kind of clear on how these things happen, right?
In the moment, it's like you don't know why things are happening, but the further you get away from it, what do they say? Hindsight's 20/20.
100%.
Like when we're so close to it, you don't see what God's doing, but it takes time to get back and to see that perspective. So I thought, man, this kind of trip, this is for the hardcore Christians, the ones who have it together. Yes. Literally, I'm like a struggling frat boy, not even like taking his first steps, like just struggling to survive. Right. As a follower of Christ, I was like, no way, this is not for me. But I just couldn't get it out of my head. And I had mentioned it. I had one friend in college that would like go to church with me. One from like all my friends, Yeah. And I just remember one time I was telling her about this crazy thing that was in the back of my mind. She said, "Oh, I think it was her cousin. My cousin did that." I said, "Really?" Yeah. So, well, why don't you just like message him? So I said, okay. Messaged him, and I told him like, man, I'm thinking about the World Race, but like I don't think it's for me, man. I'm struggling with this and this and this, and blah blah blah. And he just messaged me back and said, man, this is exactly my story coming in. Like everything you said, like you're struggling with, like I was struggling with. With the position you were in is the position I was in. Now he was finishing up in that moment.
Finishing the World Race in that moment.
Yeah, finishing the World Race. Okay. And so I just finally gave in. I said, okay.
I'll do it.
We'll see what happens. And so I did. I mean, pretty much right after I graduated in May. Actually went back to South Africa and Ethiopia again that summer. But then right when I got back from that, it was
the World Race.
Time for the World Race.
Okay, so before we start off on the World Race with you, because I want to hear about that, I have two questions for you. Yeah. Okay, we're going to talk more about Ethiopia. Now, this is at this point in the story, the second time you've gone there. What was it about Ethiopia that made you fall in love with that place?
To be honest, I didn't fall in love with the place.
Good to know.
I enjoyed it. Right. And I loved the work. I loved the people. But it wasn't like I just found this like special
this is
place
my spot.
For Ethiopia. at least in that moment.
At that time, okay.
And like, even when I was thinking missions,
right?
Even even after I was there, I never thought like, oh, Ethiopia is going to be like my place.
Right.
You know, I never, even just for simple involvement, I never thought like Ethiopia is going to be
your place,
the place.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
All right. Well, we're going to get back to that then.
Yes.
Okay. And then the second question I have for you before we go off on the next adventure is this: during your journeys and during the trials and during the struggles that you went through, how were your mom and dad during that? I'm a parent, and I know that was hard. It must have been hard for them. How were they with you? What advice would you give a parent maybe who has a child who's seeking out things?
Yeah. So you're saying like in the season when I was kind of away.
Yeah.
You know, they were never like judgmental.
Yeah.
They weren't dumb.
Right.
You know, we didn't talk about it openly, but like they knew my life, like they knew what kind of lifestyle I was living, and you know, just always giving advice just to make sure I was staying safe.
Yeah.
And I think definitely 2 prayers.
Yes.
I had a mentor later on the world race, and he said, one lesson I've learned in life is you can never escape your mother's prayers.
It's true.
And if you heard his life, talk about an unsanitized story. His life is like, I mean, it was insane.
Yeah.
But he had a mom who prayed for him.
Yeah.
He said, I learned the lesson. You can never escape your
mama's prayers.
Your mother's prayers.
I love that.
And I think that was definitely a big part of it.
Yeah.
Definitely a big part of that grace that was on my life that I talked about. So, but yeah, like I said, they never like came down on me hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, like when I made a mistake, when I did really dumb things, like, you know, they weren't like ignoring it. But as a whole, it wasn't like a constant fight between us or them trying to restrict, I guess, my freedom or my choices as a young adult.
I think you hit the nail on the head. You can't escape your mama's prayers. They prayed. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Real Life, a ministry of Hermitage Hills. If you'd like to be a part of a community seeking to follow Jesus and experience life change, visit us at hermitagehills.com/connect. You'll also find ways to ask for prayer and how to take the next steps in your faith journey. We'd love to partner with you as you grow in your faith and experience real life.